Did I get much reading done? Honestly, no. It was a sign. I say realistically, but I'm reading a fantasy book, so is it realistic? Reading, reading, reading. Whoa, look at that. Don't you think that's just stunning? Should I get it? Okay. I actually haven't taken these out of here. It's just kind of like a bowl. This week, I decided to set up my personal curriculum for the season using Notion. Now, I used this template and then added a few of my own bits and pieces when I wanted to. So on the home page, we start off with 4 main categories. First is personal, which is essentially my main habits and routines that I want to maintain throughout the season to feel most aligned and feel like the best version of myself. The second category is projects. Now, I want to improve on my photography and videography skills over the season, as well as just have a bit of fun with it. So I have set up 3 projects on here that I'm hoping to complete over the season. Then we have reading. Now, I haven't got too many assignments on here. These are just a couple of books that I want to read over the season, and I want to make sure that I don't feel overwhelmed, hence why there's only a few. But for example, we have Legends and Lattes, which is a cozy fantasy that I'm hoping to read, and also we have Fable by R.F. Kuang. Then the fourth category is socializing. Now, because it's the colder months, I don't want to fall off of this. I still want to maintain the momentum that I have in this category. So I've got a page which has a list of the events in September that I'm hoping to go to. This is a range from arts and crafts workshops to dinners to solo dates. So those are the 4 main categories that I have. And then we move down and I have a to-do list. So I think this is going to be a to-do list that I do for every week. There was an original to-do list on the template, but I replaced it with my own one that I preferred. Then we have a habit tracker for my daily and weekly habits that I want to maintain. Next is a calendar where I'm hoping to add all of the events that I go to and any other reminders that I want to add. And finally, we have a clubs and events list, which was part of the original template. I'm not sure how much I'm going to use this, but I'm going to keep it in there for now. And that is my personal curriculum for September. This is the first time I'm doing something like this, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a great way to make the most out of the season and just have some fun. So it is now October, which means we need to catch up on September. First and foremost, Vienna. I went on a city break to Vienna, which was so much fun. It made me realize how much I enjoy city breaks, especially in Europe, because it's a quick flight there, and I'm hoping to do more of them moving forward. But also it was a really fun way to transition from summer into autumn. I also managed to practice a lot with photography and videography, which was one of my main priorities in September and just in autumn in general. And then I got to get ahead with that in September, so I'm really happy with how Vienna went and just that I got to go in the first place. A second priority in September was going to more arts and crafts events, and I actually managed to go to I think 3, which was amazing. I went to a glass workshop and I still haven't received my products for those, so hopefully they come in soon. I also went to an incense workshop which actually just arrived today, where I got to make my own incense, so I'm excited to use these soon and see what they actually smell like and what the result is. And the third one that I went to was a pottery class, and I got to meet so many people. It was such a nice class and I really enjoyed it. It definitely took a lot of energy and effort, so I don't think I'll do it too frequently, but it's one that I do want to do every now and then. I also still need to paint my pottery piece, so hopefully I get to do that in October. That would be perfect. So I really loved going to these events, and it was such a fun way to enjoy September and to just enjoy autumn in general. I think hobbies and going to arts and crafts events is just a perfect way to really embrace autumn and just get more into that energy. In terms of my personal curriculum, there were 2 aspects that I am going to reevaluate moving forward. The first one is my projects. So I initially had the idea of doing a project each month which focused on photography and videography. In September, this was Vienna, and I was hoping to do another one in October and November. But now I'm thinking this is actually going to change. I think my projects will be a bit more intuitive and I'll kind of decide each month. I don't know what I'm going to be doing for October, so this is something that I'll have to review and think about moving forward. But I don't think it's going to be the same project each month. I just don't think that's going to work for me. So I'm definitely going to have a think about it. Maybe I won't do any in October and I'll only do one in November. But it's just something that I'm going to have a bit more movement in, and I'll see what I come up with as we move forward. The other aspect was the two subjects that I was learning, which was history and then art history. Now, initially when I started in September, I kind of turned this into a bit of a chore, and it was kind of a to-do list every week where I learned one chapter from each subject. This quickly became a chore, like I mentioned, and I just didn't enjoy it. So after that, I then reviewed it and realized that I want to be a bit more intuitive with it. Just pick up the book when I'm in the mood to read it and to learn about a subject, and when I actually have the energy to take notes and those kind of things, rather than making it an activity that I need to do every single week, because this was just not working. And it also meant that I wasn't getting to enjoy other hobbies that I wanted to enjoy because I was putting too much attention on that. So moving forward, I'm going to be much more intuitive with it and just learn it as I want to learn it, because I realize I really have the rest of my life to learn about subjects and topics that I enjoy. I don't need to squash it all into one season, which is what I felt like I was doing and trying to rush it. So this was an important revelation to have for me. Now, in terms of moving into October, two aspects are going to stay pretty similar. One of them being my personal habits, which I've kind of just got down now because they're part of my normal routine. The second aspect is reading and my other hobbies, which I'm really enjoying. The two that are going to adjust a bit are, first of all, my projects, which I mentioned I'm going to be reviewing and deciding what I want to do with that moving forward. And the second part is going to be the events that I go to. I don't think I'm going to go to as many as I was in September, simply because I want to spend a bit more time indoors. I want to read more. I think autumn I always tend to read a lot more than I had been during summer, so I really hope to read more. I want to do like a 24-hour reading challenge or something, and I just want to spend more time indoors. I've also really been enjoying my book journal and updating that, so I think I'm going to make the most out of it being cold outside and just staying indoors and enjoying that as much as I possibly can. That is just how I feel I'm going to move more in October, and so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be much more intuitive as well, rather than having everything as a to-do list, which I started off with in the beginning of September. After my trip, I came back and decided to be a bit more intuitive with everything and just deciding what hobbies I wanted to do during the week as I felt like it, rather than forcing myself to do everything every single week, because it's the hobby. It's supposed to be enjoyed and done when you want to, not when you have to. So I'm definitely going to move forward with much more intuition and just enjoying it a lot more, making it more cozy, and also moving at a slower pace rather than rushing through all of my hobbies and everything that I want to do, just enjoying them all as they are and in the time frame that I have. So that is how September went and how I'm hoping to move forward into October. Hello, so it is in fact the middle of October now, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to catch up with how the month has been going so far. Firstly, I have been indoors a lot lately and I've been loving it. I have just been making a lot of time for my hobbies, especially reading and also things like book journaling, and just really been making sure that I have the time as often as I can to enjoy my hobbies and make the most out of them, especially because it's colder and it's darker now and I just want to spend more time indoors. So I've really been enjoying that, and I'm going to continue with that. A couple of my favorite books recently have been Legends and Lattes, which is a cozy fantasy that I really enjoyed. This was a perfect Sunday read and I just had a lot of fun with it. It was low stake, it was a lot of coffee and baking, and it was just a really fun palette cleanser and a really amazing way to get into the autumn feel. Another book that I really enjoyed was Fable. This is a dark academic book and actually the first one that I've ever read, but it's also got a bit of a fantasy twist with it. I did struggle in the second quarter of the book just to stay in the book, but then once it got to the halfway point, I was back in there and I loved it all the way to the end. I definitely felt a lot of the friendship and the betrayals and the sacrifice and just what happened towards the end of the book, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And another book that I really loved recently was actually Caraval. This is the first book in a series which I will be continuing and completing hopefully in the next month or so once I purchase the rest of the series. But I just loved the whimsy and the magic and the mystery and the main characters and the friendships and relationships that developed along the way. It was such a fun read, and I had a magical time reading it. It was one of those books where I know that when I look back on autumn 2025, I'm going to think about this book, because last year when I read The Shepherd King duology, it gave me that same feeling when I just knew that this was going to be a book that would remind me of the season. And yeah, I just loved it, and I'm really looking forward to continuing and completing that series. Now, in terms of going to events, I did a lot of this in September, but this month I haven't been to any so far, and I'm not mad about it. I realized that I was going to end up forcing myself to go, and I just didn't want to. The weather, the coldness, and also I've been quite tired from work, and I just didn't want to force myself to go to workshops and events when I wasn't in the mood for it. So I haven't really been to any. I might go to some later in the month, but again, I'm not really sure. I think this is more of a time to just be indoors, to be a bit more local, and to just spend a lot of time on my own hobbies rather than going to specific events. So at the moment, I don't think I'm going to go to any that I can think of, but we'll see how that goes, and we'll see if I change my mind. But at the moment, I'm really just enjoying my hobbies indoors at home and just making the most of them and really enjoying them. Now, in terms of other hobbies besides reading, I've really been enjoying book journaling as well, and this has just been so much fun to update when I finish really good books. I'm really looking forward to continuing that and also being able to reflect and look back on them. Then, in terms of today, I actually woke up and I just felt a bit all over the place, kind of hectic, and so I decided to tidy up my room a bit, and I also cleaned up my bookshelves and just removed the books that I either DNF'd or that I won't be continuing this series on. So I removed those. I did in fact remove my annotations from them as well because I had tabs in them. I was originally hoping I could reuse those tabs, but I don't think that's going to be possible. So instead I'm going to use those in my next book journaling spread. So I have kept them, and then I'm just going to, once I have a good stack of books, I'm either going to donate or sell them. But I did do that, and I just tidied up my room and things, and I'm feeling much better now, and I'm actually going to head out to a cafe and I'm going to read. I am currently reading Lady of Darkness. I haven't been to a cafe to read in a while. I think I did it once or twice in summer, but not since then, and I thought today would be the perfect opportunity to do so. So like I said, I'm reading Lady of Darkness. I think I'm about 30% of the way through. I have thoughts on this, okay? Firstly, I am enjoying the way that the world building is being set up. I do like the characters, and I am going to be continuing it. I'm enjoying it in that way. However, there are two aspects that I haven't loved. Firstly is more of just something that's kind of just been irritating me, which might just be a me thing, but some of the dialogue has been a bit irritating because it's either been repeated or it just hasn't felt natural. So I haven't liked that. And the other thing was the relationship or friendship or camaraderie that has developed between our FMC and our MMC has kind of felt like it's happened too quickly. In almost the first quarter of this book, they had already kind of started trusting each other and revealing things to one another, and they started having arguments that seemed to be arguments that would only happen once you had already developed that foundational friendship or relationship, and it just felt like it happened too quickly, and I'm not sure why that has kind of irritated me, but it hasn't felt as slow as I would have wanted. It almost feels like there are scenes in between that are missing that would have shown us how they got to this stage. So that is something that I haven't loved, but I'm still continuing the book. Like I mentioned, I am enjoying the story, the characters, and we're really getting into more of how the world is set up and just kind of other elements of the world, and hopefully more into that kind of main story. So I will be continuing this, but those are just a couple of things that have irritated me so far. But I am going to be reading this at a cafe now. Okay, so I am in fact back now, and first and foremost, did I get much reading done? Honestly, no. I think I read about 10 to 15 pages at most, and honestly that's probably why I stopped doing like the cafe reading solo dates that often, because I wouldn't actually read much, because I of course ordered food, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just going with the intention to read and then not reading that much. I think I need to remember that when I do go to a cafe to read, I'm not actually going to get that much reading done, and it's more of like just getting out of the house, doing a bit of a solo date and a walk, which is fine. I just didn't read much, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But what I did do is some shopping, because on the way back, I actually went to my local bookstore and we bought a few bits. Now, I didn't actually have any intention of buying anything. I just happened to kind of feel drawn to go into the bookstore, which I often do, and I saw a few books that I already wanted, so I bought them. On the stand, right as you walk in, the first book that I see is Stephanie Garber's new book, which is called Alchemy of Secrets. Now, I did mention this earlier, which was that I loved Caraval, and I will be completing that series and also the Once Upon a Broken Heart series before I read this, but I had to get it because it's Stephanie Garber, and I think she's going to be an auto-buy author for me. Is that how you say it? I think so. Essentially, I'm going to need to buy her books. And not only that, but the hardcover is so pretty. This is what the front looks like just the actual hardback. Now, I have to say the back doesn't have any design, which I was kind of disappointed in, but the front is stunning, so we loved that, and this was the first purchase. The second book I bought was Heavenly Bodies. I know I'm very late to this, but I was actually waiting for the special edition to be available to purchase on Waterstones, but I've been waiting for ages, and I actually checked a couple days ago and it still wasn't available, and so when I saw this just sitting there on the shelf, it was a sign. And I had to get it. So we do have this as our second book. And then the third book that I bought was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now, I have only read one dark academic book before, which was Babel, which I read a couple of weeks ago. And this, from what I know, is kind of one of the original books in the dark academic genre, so I needed to get it. So once I saw it, I of course had to get this too, because that was, again, another sign. It was a day of alignment, to be honest. So this was the third book that I purchased. Now, I will not be adding these to my physical TBR simply because I want to complete all the books that are on my current physical TBR cart. And then once that is done, I want to do a complete restock. So this will be part of the restock and reset that I'll do closer to winter time. Then there were two other items that I got, one of them being this gorgeous notebook. Every time I go into the bookstore, they always have these really nice notebooks, and I just thought this one would be perfect as my next book journal once I complete the one that I'm currently using. And then I also had to buy some Halloween stickers, which will again go on my book journal, maybe my scrapbook and things like that, but I did also get these stickers. So those are all of the things that I purchased. Hello, so I have actually... Okay, I think that mic is dead, so I am back with one that is hopefully not going to die. What was I saying? I have in fact finished Lady of Darkness, and I don't remember entirely what I said about this book earlier in the video, so we're just going to start from the beginning. When I started this book, I really enjoyed the characters and how we were kind of thrown into the story. I really liked it. However, from the start until about a third of the way through, I had two main issues. The first one was the dialogue. I felt like some of it was just unnecessary or repeated, especially like specific words like "God's damn it" felt like it was repeated multiple times, and it just kind of irritated me. That could absolutely be a me problem, which I will take probably is, but it did irritate me. Another thing was the friendship between the FMC and the MMC happened way too quickly. Their progress was too quick. It started off where it was a nice start, but then it just progressed so quickly where they were arguing and they were mad at each other and they weren't trusting each other, and it was like, you guys have just met, or you, from what we know, you don't really know much about each other, so why are you already mad at each other for having secrets? Like, it doesn't make sense. You wouldn't tell someone you've just met or someone you only met a few weeks ago, you wouldn't be mad at them for having secrets from you, or not wanting to tell you, or not wanting to tell you specific things because you just met them. So that felt like it progressed too quickly. However, from about a third until the end of the story, I did like how they kind of progressed a bit more. I did like that. It was just the start of their friendship that felt like it didn't make sense for them to have arguments. It was just for the plot. Another aspect that I didn't like was our FMC. I really like the FMC, but the author made her have reactions that didn't feel natural to her because she's a very smart character. So for her to react in certain ways to certain information being revealed to her, it seemed like it was unnecessary for her to react that way because she's actually very smart and she would have been able to understand it. Now, I understand she was going through a lot of trauma at the time, so maybe that was part of why she reacted in certain ways, but it just felt unnatural for her character. And like realistically, she would have been, I say realistically, but I'm reading a fantasy book, so is it realistic? But anyway, for me, the FMC would have reacted in smarter ways than she did. But that could absolutely be like a trauma response to what she went through when she was learning this information, but it still just felt, it didn't feel natural for her character. It felt more for the plot. I think those were my main issues. I did struggle a little bit with the pacing from about like a quarter way until about halfway, or maybe just over a half. So I did have to listen to the book a couple times as an audiobook just to get me through a few chapters and push through it. And once I pushed through it, I did start to enjoy it again, but I did struggle a little bit with that. That being said, this is the first book in like, I think there are 6 books in this series, and then there's another spin-off to it as well, which has 3 books in the spin-off series. So it is the first book in a big series, which means there's a lot of things that are being set up, there's a lot of world building, there's a lot of information that we're having to learn, or at least start to learn, so that it can be developed in later books. So that was probably part of why I didn't connect completely with the first book, because I think the first book in a series, in a big fantasy series, tends to be like that. But that being said, I really did enjoy the world building. I think it's such a good world, and I'm looking forward to exploring more of those in the later books. And I liked a lot of the characters. I liked their friendships or relationships. I like how we're being introduced to more characters, especially towards the end. I really did like those aspects. Therefore, overall, I'm giving this 3 stars. I did initially think I was going to give this a higher rating just because what I've heard about this series, people seem to love it, and I thought it sounded like a book and a series that I would really love. So perhaps the later books will be higher stars, which I hope they are. I will be continuing the series. I just don't think I'm going to binge the series. I will read 1 or 2 books and just like gradually make my way through this series. But those are my thoughts and my update on Lady of Darkness. I have actually started to read The Metal Slinger, but I'm right at the very, very start of it, so I don't have much to say on it at the moment because I've read like 6 or 7 pages. We'll see how that one goes. Okay, hello, I am back, and it is in fact the same day, which is why I'm wearing the same top in the same location, same hair, because it's the same day, and it is about a week away from the end of October, and I figured I would do my October personal curriculum wrap up and my plan for November now, because when I originally started my personal curriculum and like planning for it, I thought it would be September, October and November. However, now I'm thinking the last 2 weeks of November will be a bit more of a winter reset, just so that I feel ready for winter. Otherwise, I do it at the start of December, and by the time it's done, I feel like the year's nearly over. So that is why this personal curriculum is only going to last until mid-November. So I figured we would talk about kind of what's happened in October and my plans for November now, at least the start of November. I don't know if that makes sense. Essentially, the personal curriculum is going to end in the middle of November. So let's talk about what's happened in October so far and what my plans are for the first half of November now. October. First and foremost, my personal habits. I feel like I haven't really spoken about this category of my personal curriculum because not much has happened, but essentially it incorporates you can see my teddy bear. My personal habits. These are things that just help me maintain my mental and physical health. So this incorporates things like journaling, meditating, going on my walks, and I recently went to a Pilates class and I really enjoyed it. So the only change I'm going to make to this category is to just go to Pilates classes more often. It's either going to be every week or every other week, I'm not sure yet, but I did enjoy going. It was a good way to get out of the house. It was another form of exercise that I think would help during like the colder months just to get out a bit. And I also did end up going for like lunch after, and I think I can do solo dates, and I also can go for lunch with other people. So I think it would be a good thing to incorporate into my week. So that is something that's gone well, and I do want to bring that into November. Then the other categories, what were they? Reading. I have read so much more than I thought I would. When I set off in autumn, I think I only had the plan to read 3 books in total, because in summer and maybe even spring, I did not read much. Like it was really, really bad. Or not bad, it just wasn't something that I was naturally picking up to do. And so I initially thought, October or autumn I would only read 3 books in total, but instead I read a lot more than that. I don't know the exact number, but I'll put it up here for what I read in September and October, and I've really been enjoying it, so I want to keep that going. I've got a few books that I've got left on my physical TBR, and I can restock my physical TBR again for like winter. But the reading has been so good. I've been enjoying reading physical books, and a lot of them have been available on Kindle Unlimited, so I've been reading those on my commutes, which has just made the work week feel a lot better because I can still enjoy my hobbies on those days that I'm in the office. And then I've also been using the audiobook hours on Spotify, which has been fun as well, just to listen to when I'm on walks and things like that. So I've been loving that. Another category, I think, I'm trying to remember now. Oh, projects. That category is kind of changed to just like other hobbies besides reading. So that has also been one that I've really enjoyed, specifically book journaling. I've been loving that. I started to update my archive again, which has been fun, and scrapbooking I've only done a little bit. Other ones that are in this are things like cozy gaming, but that is just something I do when I'm in the mood to, so that's not really something I plan to do. It's just, it depends on what I want to do. That has gone really well in October as well. The 4th category is events and like socializing. I did so well with this in September, but October it just got cold and dark quicker. Daylight savings are going to change again, so it's going to get dark in the evenings even earlier, and I am planning to go to an event this week, which honestly is enough for me. And then I've also been enjoying like my solo dates, going to the cafe. I know I complained about the fact that I didn't read much when I went, but I think it was a fun way to just get out of the house and to just see other people. And then I went to the bookstore, and it was just nice to do that. So whilst I haven't been going to as many as I did in September, it's been a nice balance to be able to go to enough that I feel fulfilled, but not so much that it's draining me and stopping me from enjoying my hobbies too. So that's how those have gone. Then another aspect of this was also the topics that I want to learn, which are history and art history. Those kind of fell off, and I'm only now starting to do the history one and not really the art history. I think doing both was just too much, and I just want to focus on the history book, which I'm currently like working my way through. And I think updating this in my archive has helped me to enjoy. Oh, there's a spider. Anyway, updating the archive with this has been a fun way to make these notes and learn about history, so I do want to continue that and maybe do it a little bit more often. But that is how October has gone. My favourite part has to be the reading and my other hobbies, but especially reading, just because I fell off it, and it was nice to come back to it again in autumn. Maybe that's just what it is. Autumn and winter are when I read more, and the spring and summer when I don't. That is how October has gone. Okay, sorry about that. My phone said that my storage was full, so I had to just quickly delete some things, and I need to think of a long-term solution for that because it keeps becoming a problem. So I need to clear out my photos, or I need to buy more storage because it keeps coming up. So obviously there's a problem. Anyway, what were we talking about? My plans for the end of October and for the first half of November. Firstly, in terms of my personal habits, the same except with Pilates, because I did really enjoy it and I do want to do that more often. So I'm going to leave it a bit flexible as to whether I do this weekly or bi-weekly. I'm just going to see how it goes, but I think weekly would be quite fun and good for me, for my health and my mental health. But anyway, that is my personal category. I don't like to talk too much about it just because not much changes in that category for me, because I feel like a lot of last year I spent a lot of time experimenting with habits that just helped me, and so I pretty much got them down. I just like to keep it as a category so that I maintain it and I don't slip up on it. But that is that one. The second one is reading. Okay, I just finished reading Lady of Darkness. And then I have started reading The Metal Slinger. I am literally 7 pages in, I think, and whoa, look at that. Don't you think that's just stunning? Amazing. But I do want to finish this by maybe the end of October, I think. And then after that, I have 3 books left on my physical TBR, and I will also have 3 books left for my reading goal, and so that will be a separate video. I do want to hopefully start that before the end of this video and like my personal curriculum, which I should be able to, but that is my reading goals. I'm a bit slower with my reading goals because I definitely went through a phase where I was reading a lot, like I mentioned, but I don't want to force it too much. So, because then I get overwhelmed and there's too much pressure on it and then it becomes a to-do list and a chore. I just want to enjoy it. That is a reading. In terms of my hobbies, there are a couple of things that I want to do over the next couple of weeks. I've done the book journaling that I want to do. I've updated my scrapbook as I want it. I'll probably update those at the end of November as part of my winter reset. But I do want to update my archive and continue with that. I do want to do some cozy gaming because I just haven't done it in a while. So I do want to get on my Switch and do some gaming. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember when, but I went to a pottery class and those pottery pieces are now dry, so I can actually paint them. They're actually should I get it? Okay. I actually haven't taken these out of here. Okay. So, So this is the first one. It's just kind of like a bowl and then like a little shelf around the edge with like books on it. So I need to paint this and then I'm going to put, I don't know what I'm going to put in there. I originally thought it would be taller, but there wasn't enough clay for that. So I don't know what I'm going to put in here. Maybe like my AirPods and just things that I need access to. And then that's going to go on my bookshelf. And then I also had a little bit of clay left. So I literally just made these little bases with the like trees in them. Again, going to go on my bookshelf. Don't know when. Don't know what colours I'm going to paint with. That's actually why I haven't painted them yet, because I have no idea what I want it to look like. Like I don't know what colours I want and I can't change my mind after I've done it. And yeah, I need to think about it, but I do want to do that in the next couple of weeks because otherwise it's just going to drag on and I'm never going to do it. So I do want to do that in the next couple of weeks. That is the main hobby besides reading that I really want to do, and otherwise I'm just going to keep putting it off. Then in terms of events, I think I mentioned I'm going to one in the upcoming week, and I'll try and do a couple of solo dates and maybe a couple of other events. Not a couple. I'll do a solo date and maybe one more event if I'm in the mood, but I don't want to do too many, and I also don't like to put pressure on it because it gets to the day. I kind of like to see how I feel in the week and whether I want to go or not, just because sometimes work is more tiring than I thought it was going to be. Sometimes the weather gets me more than I thought it would. Sometimes I get ill, and I just don't like to put too much pressure on socializing during these months because there are so many other factors that lead to it that change my mind on whether I want to go or not, and I like to leave it a bit more open. So we're going to see how that category goes. In terms of history and art history, I'm kind of cutting art history out at the moment because I want to focus on history. So I do want to do a couple of more, like read through a few more chapters and update my archive with this as well over the next couple of weeks. But those are the main things, I think, and like my main plans for the next couple of weeks. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I have finished reading The Metal Slinger and I ended up giving this 4 stars. This was an enjoyable read. I liked the characters. The world building is simple but still enjoyable to read about and to become immersed in. I also really liked the adventure and the journey we went on with the characters and the ending of this book as well. I absolutely love this special edition and I can't wait to put it on my bookshelf. This is the first book, with the second book coming out next year in 2026, and I do think it's a duology, so I will be reading that as well. But this was just a fun fantasy romance. It was just a fun read and I had a good time reading it. I'm so glad I finally picked it up. So I did manage to paint the pottery piece that I made towards the end of September, and actually painting it was more difficult than making it, simply because I was worried about choosing a colour that I didn't end up liking in the end, and there was also a limited amount of paint, so I wasn't sure if it was going to cover the whole surface that I wanted it to. I do have my own acrylic paint, so I did use a bit of that, but mostly I used the paint that was provided at the event that I went to, and there was quite a bit of paint left over that I can use for something else. A couple of times I got the paint in the wrong place, but I think I managed to tidy it up, and I'm glad that I've finally done this. I do still need to put a final glaze on these once they're dry, so I will do that at some point too, but for now this is what I did. It is officially the end of my personal curriculum for autumn, and I had so much fun. This was such a good way for me to understand what the main categories of my life were and are, and how to prioritize each of them in a way that was balanced and enjoyable rather than forcing myself to do things that I maybe didn't necessarily want to do. But we will get more to my overall thoughts in a second. First of all, let's just speak about the end of October and the start of November. So I actually went to a couple more social events than I thought I was going to, and they were really fun. They just felt aligned. They were in good locations. I was in good moods on the day, so I felt like going, and I did, and I had a lot of fun. I met some really nice people, and it was just a good way for me to kind of close off my curriculum. I have managed to go to Pilates every week, which has been wonderful. And it's just made me feel like I'm really taking care of myself and I'm stepping more into my physical health more than I had been previously. I did manage to paint my pottery piece, which actually turned out really nice. I love how it ended up being, and I'm glad that I managed to fit this in, because otherwise I think I was just going to let it get to my head way too much and end up not doing it because I was too worried about how it would turn out. I did not do cozy gaming or like scrapbooking or anything. They just didn't feel aligned to me these past couple of weeks. I didn't want to do them, and I'm glad that I didn't, because otherwise I would have forced myself to. So that is absolutely fine. That brings us on to more of kind of my final views of my personal curriculum. When I set out to do this, it was really a way for me to just enjoy the season, because I'm absolutely a summer girly, and so as soon as it gets to autumn, I just feel my personality leaving me, and I didn't want that to happen this year, and it didn't. I had so much fun. I actually did more than I did in summer, I think, because I had a clear set of categories that I wanted to include in the season, and I was able to reflect each week on what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. So I was able to look at each of them and think, do I want to go socializing this week, or do I want to read this week? Do I want to do another hobby? And it was a really good way for me to have the option to pick and choose which aspect I wanted to focus on and prioritize. It was also a really good way to let myself be flexible and let my mood determine it, which I know some people don't like to do, but this was really good for me. Otherwise, I do end up forcing myself to do things just for the sake of it and just kind of tick them off on my to-do list, even though I don't want to. So being able to be really flexible about when I went out, when I did a hobby, when I stayed in and read, was a really wonderful way for me to just feel like I'm actually taking care of myself, whilst also prioritizing each of these categories in my life. So I'm so glad that I've done this. It's also made me sure that I really can balance each of these things. When I started out in September, I was definitely more leaning towards forcing myself to do everything every single week rather than having a bit more flexibility with it. However, over October and November, it has definitely switched to more balanced, which has been amazing, and I'm really hoping to bring that into winter. I will not be doing a personal curriculum per se in winter, but I will still maintain these main categories and just keep up to date with them and allow myself to adjust as the weeks go. And we have had our time change, so it's like an hour earlier now, or whatever it is. It's just darker earlier than it used to be, which is probably going to impact how I move forward as well in terms of my evenings and stuff. But I'm still allowing myself to be flexible with all of these things and not force myself to do things that I don't want to do. Part of this has been to understand when I'm saying no to things out of fear rather than out of actually not wanting to do it. This is specifically catered more towards socializing and going to new events to meet new people. A couple of times I didn't want to go because I was really tired, I needed to get some sleep, or other factors came into play. And sometimes it was because I was scared that I wasn't going to get on with anyone, I wasn't going to know anyone, and from that place then I did end up going, and I actually had a really good time and I met some lovely people, and I embraced other hobbies like pottery, and I just tried new things, and it was so much fun. I've not ever taken advantage of autumn or even London this way before, but I'm so glad that I have. It feels like a real shift and change in my life in general, in just making the most out of what I have and being grateful for it and enjoying it and allowing myself to adjust with the seasons in a way that still feels enjoyable rather than me resisting the change. So it has been really fun. I have loved it so much. Some of my favorite aspects have definitely been, one, the socializing and going to new events. I loved the pottery one specifically. It was just such a brand new hobby for me, and whilst it's not something I'm planning on doing consistently, it was still fun to do and just get myself out there. This was also one of the biggest kind of social challenge for me, because it was the first time I was going to one of these events without knowing absolutely anyone, especially like a large event. It was more people than I usually go to, so that was really good. Another aspect I have loved is my book journal. This has been so much fun. I didn't really have this prior to autumn, so I think I started it more towards the end of September, but it was so much fun. I don't know why, it just really helped me, first of all, reflect on the books that I've really, really enjoyed, and secondly, combine that with arts and crafts in a way that was really enjoyable. And I absolutely loved it. I will be keeping up to date with it and continuing it as we move through the next few months. But this was a really fun surprise in terms of a new hobby that I'm doing and kind of a shift in my hobby. So I really, really enjoyed that. In terms of reading, my favourite book over this season has to be Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I initially gave this 4 stars, but now I'm changing it to 4.5 because I keep thinking about it. So I am bumping it up, and I will be continuing and hopefully completing that series in the future, hopefully in the next couple of months. I don't want it to go too long before I complete it because I think it's more of a winter read anyway. But that was absolutely my favourite book of this season, and it was just so whimsical and fun, and I know I already spoke about it, but I really, really enjoyed that book. So those are kind of my highlights for autumn. And moving forward into winter, I'm excited. I feel like I've got back into filming again as well, which I think this video has done. Filming my personal curriculum over the 3 seasons, over the 3 months, has got me back into enjoying creating YouTube videos. So I will be doing that hopefully more often. I'm not going to do a seasonal video like this. I'm hoping it will be more consistent than that, but I'm still going to allow myself to be flexible with what just feels right in the moment. But this has definitely brought me back to YouTube and enjoying it again, because for a while I think I kind of burnt out, and so I stopped filming over spring and summer, definitely over summer, and I'm just glad that I'm back now, and it's been a lot of fun. So those are my thoughts on my personal curriculum. Let me know in the comments if you did one, how you found yours, and also if you're doing one for winter, because like I mentioned, I'm not doing a specific personal curriculum in the same way that I have for autumn, where it's a bit more, not rigid, but a bit more structured. I'm not necessarily doing that, but it is helping me to understand what I want to do in winter and moving forward with that as well. But let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.